West Londoners can breathe a sigh of relief as the government's pledged almost £3 million towards repairing Hammersmith Bridge. Well, sort of. It'll be enough money for cyclists and walkers for another year, but not enough to make it safe for cars. Our political correspondent Simon Harris reports.
Hammersmith Bridge hasn't seen a bus or a van or a car in almost 3 years. It can be crossed on foot, but not on a bike. And it's left people on both sides of the river fed up and angry.
This is London, and you can't build a bridge. What are you all doing here?
Trying to ignore that interruption were a government minister and council leaders being briefed on the latest plan to stop this London bridge from falling down. Over the next few months, corroded roller bearings will be replaced to try to prevent the cast iron structure developing any more cracks. The £9 million cost of these latest repairs is being shared equally between the government, Hammersmith and Fulham Council and Transport for London. But there's still no firm plan or money to make the bridge strong enough for buses and cars. That could cost anywhere between £100 million and £160 million.
Today's announcement, I really feel, is just quite a bit of smoke and mirrors. It's going to take considerably more than £3 million to get this bridge fully reopened, and we're still waiting to hear a plan, a strategy, anything at all that will get us any closer to that.
So what's stopping the government and Hammersmith and Fulham Council, which owns the bridge, agreeing a long-term fix?
We're relying upon them to get a project plan in place that we can then look at and hopefully fund if it represents value.
It's going to cost £100 million at least. Are you prepared to pay that?
I haven't seen numbers like that. I mean, at the moment, I haven't seen any numbers as to what the proposed project would actually cost.
The government says they haven't seen a plan from you yet.
We've given them lots of business plans, but what's being assessed at the moment is the difference between the original £163 million scheme and Hammersmith and Fulham's £100 million possibility.
People want to know when will it fully reopen, and you can't answer that yet.
No, I can't, because I do not own the bridge. I'm not responsible for the bridge.
No one can say when this bridge will reopen to cars.
I think everyone's saying that the bridge will reopen to cars. They can't say when.
The apparent deadlock has left local residents and campaigners like Julia exasperated.
My personal view is that at this rate it will never reopen to cars and buses, because neither the government nor Hammersmith Council nor TfL, who are the three stakeholders involved, have any interest in reopening it. No one is prepared to pay the money.
If all goes to plan, anyone on 2 wheels will be allowed back on the bridge in October. But for anyone on 4 wheels or more, the long, slow detour to cross a short stretch of river goes on. Simon Harris, ITV News, Hammersmith.
Good evening. A major incident was declared earlier today following a gas leak at the London Aquatic Centre in Stratford. Ambulance and fire crews rushed to the complex after huge quantities of chlorine was released, causing breathing difficulties for a number of people. 29 had to be taken to hospital, with a further 48 needing treatment at the scene. Several people were in the pool swimming when the incident happened, and residents living nearby have been urged to keep all windows and doors closed. We'll be live there in a moment, but first, here's our correspondent, Simon Harris.
Ambulance crews and paramedics were scrambled to London's Olympic Park after reports of a gas leak at the Aquatic Centre. They arrived to find more than 70 casualties. Most had minor breathing difficulties and were treated in the open air. The Aquatic Centre had been evacuated in a hurry. Some swimmers were forced to leave the building without their clothes.
I was just swimming, and all of a sudden the alarms went off and people running around. And then when I went through the change room, you could smell the chlorine gas.
London Ambulance Service quickly declared a major incident.
I just see the ambulances all turn up and a few adults and kids coming out of the Aquatic Centre, and all of a sudden the road started getting closed.
The Royal London and Homerton hospitals were put on alert and warned to expect patients who'd been exposed to chemicals. Decontamination tents were set up. In all, 29 people were taken to hospital. Others stayed in the Olympic Park, wrapped in towels and blankets or wearing paper boiler suits as they waited to be reunited with their clothes.
I'm a teacher, I'm in the pool, we just got evacuated, and that's all I know. We're just waiting for more news. We don't know what has happened.
Are you all right?
Yeah, but I was very lucky because I was just in the water, so I'm absolutely fine.
The gas in the Aquatic Centre was identified as chlorine. A lorry, apparently delivering chemicals, was parked outside the building. It's thought the leak was triggered as chemicals were being mixed. Fire crews are now using fans inside the Aquatic Centre to blow the chlorine gas out of the building. People living nearby have been told there's no risk, but as a precaution should keep their windows and doors closed.
We've got specialist teams on site who are used to dealing with chemical incidents. We are well trained to do this, and we do attend chemical incidents on a daily basis. The decision that has been taken here is that we're going to use positive pressure ventilation fans, essentially, to remove the gas out into the atmosphere.
In the run-up to the 2012 Olympics, the emergency services carried out exercises to test their response to a large number of people being exposed to chemicals. 10 years on, some of that training was put into practice today. Simon Harris, ITV News, Stratford.
Good evening. The families of the 7 victims of the Croydon tram crash have spent years fighting for justice for their loved ones. So today, it was little wonder they welcomed the decision by the railway watchdog to prosecute the driver of the tram. The Office for Road and Rail is accusing Alfred Doris of failing as an employee to take reasonable care of passengers. Mr. Doris had said previously he was confused at the time of the crash, but didn't fall asleep on the job. Families say they hope the prosecution could give them some closure after an awful 5.5 years. Our political correspondent Simon Harris has the story.
I think it's fantastic news. We've waited 5.5 years to get justice, and hopefully we will get some justice this time.
Marilyn's favourite spot in her garden is the fish pond her husband created. Philip Logan died in 2016. He was one of 7 passengers killed when a tram overturned at Sandilands in Croydon.
Everything is still on hold, and I think myself and a lot of the other families, this will put complete closure on it, so we can all get on with our lives.
Last year, an inquest decided the crash was an accident, a frustrating outcome for the families who were hoping for a verdict of unlawful killing. Now, Transport for London, along with the tram company Tram Operations Limited and the driver, Alfred Doris, are to be prosecuted for allegedly breaking health and safety laws. When the tram hit the sharp left-hand curve just before Sandilands station, it was travelling at 4 times the speed limit. The driver, Alfred Doris, has never spoken publicly about what happened. The inquest was told he may have slipped into a micro-sleep. In 2019, the Crown Prosecution Service said there wasn't enough evidence to charge him with manslaughter. But today, the ORR's Chief Inspector of Railways Ian Prosser said, "We've made a fair, independent and objective assessment about what happened, and it is now for the court to consider if any health and safety law has been breached."
We know that there were multiple failings. We know that there were things that should have happened that didn't. We know that the tram, the risk assessments of the tramways weren't what they should have been. We know that things could have been done to stop this from happening. So this will provide some comfort to the families, and I'm pleased that the ORR have made this announcement today.
I quite often come and sit out here and talk to the fish at night, silly as it sounds, but it brings me closer to Phil. Hopefully when this goes to court, it'll all be, well, sort of sorted. I mean, 5.5 years is a long, long time to wait for this.
The first hearing in this new case will be at Croydon Magistrates Court. Marilyn says she'll be there.
As Marilyn said, it's taken 5.5 years to reach this point. So what's the timeline going forward?
Well, we know very little about the timetable other than there will be a hearing at Croydon Magistrates Court. We don't even know the date yet, but it's unlikely to lead to a swift conclusion. Now, in theory, the case could be dismissed by the magistrate. But if it proceeds and any of or all 3 of the parties decide to challenge it, in other words, plead not guilty, then it will have to go to trial, possibly at the Crown Court. What little we know about the charges against the 3 parties are that Transport for London and Tram Operations Limited are accused of failing to ensure the safety of passengers as far as reasonably practicable. And Alfred Doris, the driver, he's been accused of failing as an employee to take reasonable care of the passengers. Now, as we heard, the families have waited 5.5 years for this. They'll have to wait a little bit longer, but they should know soon when that first court hearing is going to be.
OK, Simon, thank you.